In this video, I'm going to take a look at the top 7 decks to climb to legend in the early Saviors of Uldum metagame. It's still fairly early in the expansion, so I haven't been able to do full analysis of the meta, but we already have a bunch of data available, and we can clearly see some decks distinguishing themselves from the rest. The new cards in Saviors of Uldum are powerful and they have clearly shaped the metagame. However, if you don't have new cards, then Bomb Hunter is the old deck that has made it the best through the transition. Bomb Hunter doesn't need no new cards. It's still great deck to climb to legend. It works just fine, so that comes in at number 7. So far the second best old deck, by the way, looks like to be Cyclone Mage. So Cyclone Mage, Bomb Hunter, if you have the old versions, those are still pretty okay. Cyclone Mage is a couple of notches below this one, but Bomb Hunter the best old deck, and number 7 on the list. Coming in at number 6 is the trickiest one-trick pony I have ever seen in Hearthstone. It's the current version of Murloc Paladin. I can't believe this stuff works, but according to statistics it does. And the thing that makes this one-trick pony is that this deck is completely and totally dependent on drawing Prismatic Lens. You want your Prismatic Lens, you play the Prismatic Lens as soon as possible, you try to get Tip the Scales from it, you play Tip the Scales as soon as possible, you fill the board with Murlocs, and you hope that they don't get removed. If they don't, you win. If they are answered, well, you still have another Tip the Scales. And then once you run out of cards, you have Zephyrus the Great, and you have Zefnomi, so you still have some other tools there at the end, because Tip the Scales just draws through your deck so very quickly. But just looking at the drawn win rates of cards on this deck, then Prismatic Lens is like 15 percentage points better than all the other cards or something. That's a level of one-trick ponying that I have never seen in Hearthstone before. But I guess if you like a deck that pilots itself, then this is a deck for you. On the other hand, if you enjoy hitting people in the face, then we actually have a new aggro deck, and it's really aggressive aggro deck, and it's even warrior deck. So Aggro Warrior, this one has been doing really well. It has a miserable matchup against Control Warrior. We're talking below 30% win rate, maybe even below 20% win rate. We're talking about getting absolutely and utterly crushed. But it makes up for it with having really good matchups against almost everything else in the field. There were some other decks that I also considered including in the list that are pretty good against other stuff but lose miserably to Control Warrior. One example of those decks would be Tempo Rogue. But Aggro Warrior is just a couple of notches above Tempo Rogue, because while both take a huge beating from Control Warrior, Aggro Warrior is much better against the rest of the field. Bloodstone Mercenary. Indeed, the card actually did make a deck. Coming in at number 4 is Highlander Hunter. I played this archetype as well. You can find a guide to that, to my variant of this deck on this channel. I naturally prefer my variant over this build, but this is the one that has a good sample size, and of the decks that has a good sample size of this archetype, this is the one that has been performing the best. A really fun and flexible mid-range deck to play, taking defensive role against aggro decks. With that secret early game, you're able to defend yourself. Taking aggression role against control decks, and you have Dino Tamer Bran, you have Zul'jin, you have Zephyrus the Great. There's just a lot of reach in this deck. A really fun deck to play, and showing that, yeah, the Highlander synergy cards are powerful enough to support decks that are absolutely top tier. Coming in at number 3 is Combo Priest. I have a hard time believing in this, but statistics just show time and again that it's actually really hard to kill everything from Priest every time. When Priest has stuff like Psycho Bomb, High Priest Amet, bunch of healing tools. It's just so difficult to keep the board clear, and once this Priest lands a minion, sticks a minion, Divine Spirit, Inner Fire, boom, dead. It's only really Control Warrior that has such a removal package that it can just clean up everything every single time. Against anything else, all it takes for Priest is to have one minion stick once. Coming in at number 2 is another Highlander deck, the Highlander Mage. Using Zephyrus the Great, using Reno the Relicologist, these Highlander synergy cards. Putting in a bunch of 10 mana cards like Kalagos, King Faris, Puzzlebox of Yogg-Saron and Pyroblast. Highlander Mage has been performing extremely well on the ladder. It is also a very solid deck against Control Warriors, which is important in the current meta game. And it has a limited number of weaknesses, although Hunter, for example, is one. There are basically 4 very similar mage variants on the ladder right now. There's this Highlander Mage, then there's Freeze Mage, Big Spell Mage, and the good old Cyclone Mage. All of which are very similar in their construction, all of them have Mountain Giant and Conjurer's Calling in them, and all of them are performing pretty well actually. Highlander Mage is the one that is doing the best, followed by Freeze Mage, Big Spell Mage and Cyclone Mage. In some sense all of them could be recommended for a legend climb, but Highlander Mage has had the best performance, and all of them are fairly similar to play. And coming in at number 1 is Control Warrior. Control Warrior has really flourished in the current meta game. It has now included the small taunt package, 2 copies of Frightened Flunky, Armadillo, 2 copies of Tomb Warden. This allows Control Warrior to play a bit more of a proactive game plan. Armadilloed Tomb Wardens are pretty big, and once you're Dr. Boo Mad Genius they have Rush, and you can also discover more of them. So the deck has been going very strong, still incredibly strong removal suit, taunt minions to help defend more, and access to some more proactive game plans as well, so Control Warrior is now stronger than ever. That said, there are numerous decks that can beat the current Control Warrior. Quest Paladin, Highlander Mage are some examples. You can also build a Quest Druid that's countering this. You could play like Mechatoon Warlock, which is also really good at countering this. Highlander Hunter, when properly built, is also favored against Control Warrior. But most Control Warrior counters have weaknesses, like Quest Paladin, Mechatoon Warlock. They just have a lot of weaknesses of their own, so they cannot really become that prevalent and effectively counter Control Warrior, because they lose to so many other decks. The meta is obviously still shaping up, and the relative positions of these top decks will change. But the absolute top decks of the moment will remain playable in the future as well, even if they fall a little bit from number 1 to like number 6 or something. On the surface it might look like many things stayed the same. We still have warriors, we still have a lot of mages, the classes we had during Rise of Shadows as well, but the content of the decks has changed quite a lot. So it is a new meta. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the show, please click the like button and subscribe to my channel for more.